no. Many people may have heard of this. Then again, it was 6 years ago, so I'm not sure. This was a blog post from a researcher called Professor Brian Wansink, and Wansink was at the time an extremely famous and successful researcher in the psychology of eating and food. And he did a lot of experiments on what makes people choose and select foods, and what makes people choose the amount of food that they're going to eat. So this had lots of, his work was very well popularized in the media because his studies were about things like, what makes people eat more, how can we prevent obesity, even, and he was studying things like the size of plates that you ate or the arrangement of food on a buffet, and he was trying to find out what was going on and what determined your amount of eating. So Wansink, as I say, was very, very successful, had a huge library of high impact papers. And then in 2016, he published a blog post which ended up really destroying his whole career. And in this post, he described how, so to cut a long story short, he described how he did an experiment with an all-you-can-eat Italian buffet. And they collected data from, I think it was a few hundred people, and they measured how much each person ate and so forth. And they did this study, and they analyzed the data, and they didn't find any support for their original hypothesis. And then in this blog post, Wansink described how there was a certain PhD student who was eager to analyze this data. So he gave her the data and basically said to her, go through it and keep analyzing it until you find something. He actually says, I said, this costs us a lot of time and money to collect. There's got to be something here. And so in the post, he openly admits to all the kind of things that the reproducibility crisis was talking about, hacking, post hoc theorizing, p-hacking. He also, this isn't in the selection of the post I quoted here. He also described how there was a postdoc who refused to do this. And the conclusion of Wansink's post was, you have to be like the PhD student. You have to always be working hard, analyzing data, getting positive results, and then you'll get publications. And don't be like the postdoc who ended up with no publications. So the fact, it was a really weird post because he was just so almost innocent and naive about this, because he genuinely didn't see any problem with anything he was saying. But a lot of other people did. So for example, this is one of many comments on this post, saying how much of a problem it was that he was getting an unpaid student to do his p-hacking and salami slicing, shaming the postdoc who said no to this. The quantity of the academic publications is the only thing that matters to you. And there was a lot of anger in this comment section because this was a post that really did quite openly talk about and almost glory in all of these QRPs. Now, the story after that is a rather long and sad one. There were a lot of people who looked into Wansink's previous work and found a lot of problems. There were all kinds of stats issues and all kinds of sort of mysterious mysterious things like participants disappearing and then reappearing in other studies, and evidence of selective exclusion and stuff like that. And eventually Wansink resigned. So his culinary science career unfortunately came to a bit of an end. And I think that was the moment really for a lot of people that it was clear that the tables had turned in terms of, you know, now it was it had reached the point in 2016 that you couldn't openly admit to doing those kind of things anymore, because I don't think that anyone would have really been that troubled by this if Wansink had written that 10 years earlier. But by 2016, the movement for reproducibility had reached the stage where that wasn't acceptable in science. So